Hello. You're muted.
Oh, you can unmute me.
There we go.
Do you have the power to unmute, Cam?
To mute and unmute, but only if I mute you. If I don't mute you, then you have to unmute yourself.
Oh.
Got it.
It was something like that on Bewitched, right? You can only undo your own spell, but not somebody else's.
Right?
Oh, how'd that work?
Yeah.
That's funny. Those are the good. I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched,
Yeah.
Gilligan's Island. Those are all shows that formed my perception.
Definitely. They say that I Dream of Jeannie was a man's dream. You know, have a woman he can completely control and lock her away if he needed to. But Bewitched was the woman's dream, that she had all power over her husband and everybody else.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that before. That's funny.
Yeah. Hold her up.
There's James.
Hello.
How much time we got, Cam?
Got a minute.
Got a minute?
Perfect. So does the recording go out or just the audio?
Oh, well, it gets recorded. I'll put it on YouTube. This is a Facebook Live event.
Well, it's live and on the radio.
And on the radio. It will be in iHeart and iTunes later on this afternoon and some other venues.
Well, I have a serious question we need to answer.
Okay.
How's my hair look?
You look wonderful. How's my makeup okay?
Absolutely. I couldn't even tell that you're 300. Right?
He knows.
All right,
well.
stand by. Here we go.
You can also leave a suggestion. Then, when you're done, rate the show. The hosts love your feedback, and others appreciate it. So next time you download a show, take a second to leave your thoughts and rate it.
Hello, this is Daniel Brinkley, and you are listening to Contact Talk Radio.
The views expressed on contacttalkradio.com are those of the guest hosts and callers, and not necessarily of this station, its management, or other advertisers.
This is contacttalkradio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on tunein.com, Bing.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. Enjoy a survey of inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. It's all right here. Leading authors, speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs with stories and messages to support your well-being, let alone your most evocative dreams.
Hey, it's another groovy day. And why is that, you might ask? Well, when I got up this morning, I decided to make a choice, and I chose to make it a groovy day. And it's also a double groovy day because today is the day of Life Mastery Radio. Yay! Welcome to the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. As always, before the show gets started, I like to get myself centered and just consciously think about connecting to that which I get power from. And you can do the same. That might be God, Allah, whatever it is that you believe. It could be the doorknob that opens the door to your personal space. Just consciously consciously connect it to that which gives you power. And then I always like to stretch maybe and roll my shoulders a little bit, get in the groove a little bit more, and let's take in a deep breath. And let that breath out with a big ah, and just let your essence flow up from your solar plexus through your heart center, right out of your speaker box and out into the universe. And let the universe know that you're around. Now, this time, we're going to let our dreams, visions, and goals flow right through us. So here we go. Same thing. Just let those dreams, visions, and goals flow. And for sure, allow the universe, spirit, God, whatever it is that you believe in, the opportunity to make those come true for you. So cool. I am so glad to be here today. I have a really cool guest. As always, though, I also have my co-host. She's a really groovy chick, too. And you can see her little classroom in her groovy little school in the background. And hi, Jackie. How are you today?
I'm great. Good to be with you.
Yeah. How's things in the little schoolhouse of Rock?
They're doing great. Had an open house on Saturday and had some people come by and take a look at the new place and met some new friends and saw some great old friends.
Yeah, it's a cool place. Jackie and I are both big into Toastmasters. We've both been district director. I was a district director. She was a district governor. And last week, we got to enjoy a little gavel club that you're starting. And these are, because to be a member of Toastmasters, you have to be 18 years old. But there's a program for the little people, the little humans, in order for them to develop their speaking skills. And you know, I watch these kids and I think I could be looking at the next president of the United States or a leader, a truly leader, because these kids are developing leadership skills that they don't get from school.
Well, I'm sure you're looking at some software engineers in the future. These kids are very intelligent and they're into mathematics and coding and technology. They love all of that kind of stuff. And then I also have some students who are wonderful musicians. In fact, on Sunday afternoon, I went to see one of my students play with a symphony.
Yeah, I saw that.
She played the
Bellevue
piano
Symphony.
with the entire symphony behind her. And it was just wonderful to watch her stage presence in a whole different way than I'm used to seeing in our public speaking classes.
And so she actually went through your Speak, Feed, and Lead courses.
Yep, absolutely. She's been with me for an entire year now. And she won a gold medal in a piano competition recently. And the symphony invited her to come play with them.
Wow.
She's only 11 years old. It was just
11.
so impressive.
So
So impressive.
is it because, I don't want to give you all the credit, but I mean, was her presence felt? I mean, did she have confidence when she walked out there? And is that something that she picked up possibly from the Speak, Feed, and Lead school?
She definitely had confidence. I don't know if she had been coached how to bow after she finished playing. Because she immediately got up from her piano seat and walked over to the orchestra lead, which is the first violin. She shook her hand and shook the conductor's hand and then walked right off stage. She didn't turn around and bow to the audience again. I thought, someone needs to coach her a little bit better that way. So Miss Jackie will have to do that. She'll give her some coaching.
Miss Jackie.
Yes. But now you had some great opportunity with youth this past week as well.
I did. I spoke at some assemblies for high school and middle schools for their Veterans Day celebration. And I don't think, well, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I don't think they've ever experienced a dynamic speaker like that. I mean, it's mostly blah, 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 and here I was just out there. I was connecting with them and really enjoying them as much as I think they enjoyed my story and talked about some history and Veterans Day. And yeah, and I got to tell you, Jackie, it was kind of a thankless job, really. I mean, it was show up, do this thing, and then the bell rings and they're gone.
Yeah, yeah.
They just scatter. And
they're like rats that are trained to just go.
Some of the teachers came up and really thanked me and told me that it was very inspiring. So, that was totally worth it. And a couple kids did come up and thank me for being a veteran and thank me for speaking with them. And
those are the leaders. Those are the few leaders that recognize that they heard something wonderful and need to be grateful for that.
Right. Okay, you ready to go on with the show? Our show page today is at lifemasteryradio.com or .net. You can go there. Any links that we talk about today are right there, so you don't have to worry about writing anything down. Jackie's link is there, JackieBaileySpeaks.com, and you can find out more about her programs and we both really love working with kids, and it's inspiring to be able to do that. And she is making a huge difference in the way these kids show up in the world and the understanding of what's inside them and what's important to them. So it's really cool. Go check her out. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter. Jackie puts out a newsletter once a week, talks about who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and a big blog post, a blog post about the guest that was on the show and some of her takeaways. So it's pretty cool. Okay, on with the show. Our guest today is James Purpura. And James has experienced some of the most extreme moments life can offer. 15 years ago, he was an inmate struggling with life in solitary confinement, placed there as a result of his actions while homeless and addicted to drugs. While in prison, he reconciled his life and developed a personal philosophy. Once released, he found his wife, or maybe she found him. I'm not sure. We're going to get to the rest of that story. Created an amazing family, a beautiful, prosperous life, and became inspired to share his knowledge with the world. Everyone, please give a warm welcome. We hear you clapping, so make sure you do it. No, I'm just kidding. James. Hi, James. How are you today, my friend?
That guy sounds awesome. I can't wait to meet him. I'm super excited to hear what he has to say.
Me as well.
Oh, my gosh. So, I have this belief, because it happened for me, that somehow for us to really wake up in the world, there has to be, and this doesn't has to be, but both of us have done it. There's some kind of desperation that has occurred in our life, and then we come around. Do you concur with that? Is that kind of what happened?
I mean, I don't think that everybody has to have that type of experience,
Totally.
But I do think there is a catalyst for change for people, and people either listen to that call or don't. For me, it was a matter of life or death, right? I couldn't continue the way I was living. So therefore, if I didn't heed that warning, things weren't going to end up very well for me, because I had just about experienced every nightmare imaginable to that point. And it was kind of life or death for me, I think.
Yep. Same here. I was on my knees. I was on my knees crying like a little baby. So we kind of got a little bit of the backstory, but tell us about how you developed this system about perception. Is it something that took some time, or did it all of a sudden pop right in there?
So, I like to kind of preface this whole thing by making people understand that everybody is up on a path to somewhere. I had some pretty traumatic childhood events. And as a result of those events, I ended up addicted to drugs. And as a result of living through those events, I ended up addicted to drugs and then ended up in jail and solitary confinement. Because of what happened to me in my kindergarten class was, when I got to kindergarten, it became pretty apparent that I had pretty severe learning disabilities. And the first day that I was going to go to the special ed class, the teacher called me up in front of the room and she said, "I want you to know that only retarded and stupid kids go to special ed." I was kind of shocked, and I stood there and I was looking around, and as I walked out of the room, she made the entire class call me stupid on the way out. And so, of course, I went home that night and I told my mom, right? And she was a undiagnosed manic depressive bipolar disorder. My stepdad worked 17 hours a day. My dad was off doing drugs, and she just looked at me and said, "You're just going to have to learn how to deal with it." Right. And so my hope was, after experiencing that this was a one-time occurrence, that I'd go in the next day and it would just be gone. But nope, every single day she'd call me up in front of the room. She'd tell me I was stupid, make the whole class call me stupid on the way out the door. And the reason I tell you that is because from that point forward, I felt very much like a victim in my life, like things were happening to me, not because of me. I had a lot of really bad experiences all the way throughout my life with bullying and different things. And I felt like, I went to church at the time, and it was like, all you have to do is be a good person and good things will happen to you. But that wasn't my experience, right? I was a good person, right? I was kind, I was loving, I was sincere. I always tried to help people. And it felt like I was just getting dumped on at every turn. And so one day when I was in jail, I'm sitting in solitary confinement. I used to write these long lists of people who I felt like had harmed me, right? And one day I was looking at this list, and sometimes I would sit down and try to offer these people forgiveness. And something occurred to me. I had this epiphany. I looked down at the list and I said, the only common denominator between all of these situations is me. What if I somehow created all of this? So when I thought about what that meant, I thought, well, you can't create some of your life and not all of it. Either you're the creator of your experiences or you're not. And so I really thought about what that meant for some time. And what I got to was, if I was in fact the creator of my experiences, that meant I could create something new and different and magical in its place.
Right.
Right. But it also meant I had to take responsibility for everything that had ever happened to me.
Totally.
Because I was saying it was mine. Right. And if I wasn't the creator of my experience, it meant the world really was a crappy place. And I probably don't want to be here anymore. And so it was pretty clear to me that I had a clear choice, because I wasn't much into thinking about killing myself at that point in time. I really wanted to build my life. And so I decided on that day that I was the creator of my experiences and that I would take responsibility for everything that happened for me. So instead of trying to offer those people forgiveness, I offered them gratitude, right, for giving me choices. And so from that point, I was on a mission to figure out how it is we go about creating our experiences. And so people always go, wait, how can you take responsibility for your abuse? And I don't want anybody to get confused here, because when I say that you take responsibility for all of your experiences, when I go back to that abusive situation, I had to ask myself this question: does the abuse define me? And if the answer to that question is yes, then I'm stuck forever, because I can't go back to change the abuse. So what I decided is that the other person's actions had nothing to do with me. That had to do with them. And so I left them with them, right? And I said, okay, well, what about that created my life? And it wasn't the abuse, it was what I chose to believe about myself based on the abuse.
Right.
I tell people this all the time. They want to jump in and go, but you were only 5. What else were you going to believe? And I'm like, stop taking my power away.
Right.
Right? Stop trying to take my power away, because yes, that's the story I told myself. But the truth is, I did have choice, because not everybody who's been abused has allowed it to destroy them. Had I had a mom, excuse me, that was capable, right? She could have jumped in, intervened, and put me on a different path. Told me it wasn't about me, right? And addressed those feelings underneath, but I didn't. So I certainly made the only choice I could with the information that's available to us, but that's what we all do. And so we have this narrative that we float, and the float is that if your life is not what you want it to be, it's not because you did anything wrong, it's because you made the only choice you could with the information available to you.
Right.
And that's always the case. I mean, you talked a lot about choices, but for the majority of us, we don't have choice. So what this show about for me is opening up that choice.
Well, it's not that we don't have the choice, it's that we don't understand that we can choose, right? I mean, it's that awareness that we have the ability to choose a different perspective. Well, I guess it'd be to choose a different outcome. And not buy into it.
So, I mean, I love that you're struggling with this, because it shows that you're thinking about it. And I've spent an extraordinary amount of time thinking about this topic, right?
Okay.
And so here's what I would tell you. And this is a narrative I run. I want you both to know that you've never made a bad decision.
Right.
And so everybody goes, oh, yeah, I know, because I learned something. No. I mean, not only have you never made a bad decision, you're not capable of making a bad decision. And so when I tell people that, they go like, James, I feel like I've made a lot of bad decisions, right? But the truth is you're not capable of it unless you're a sociopath or mentally ill. Because a bad decision would be that you are going to examine all of the information around you, and you are going to make a decision that you know is not in your best interest. But that's not the way we make decisions. The way we make decisions is we examine all of the available information, and we make the best decision we can with the information. Now, it may not work out great for us, which is what we define as a bad decision, but it wasn't a bad decision. And so people will go, what do you mean? I said, well, you've only ever made decisions with bad information. And there's, people tell me, well, that's phonetics. I'm like, no, it's not. And understanding this will set you free. And so here's the real narrative, is that if you've only ever made decisions using bad information and you've never made a bad decision, that means there's nothing wrong with you, right? It's only an information problem, right? Because you're doing the best you can with what you got.
Right.
The problem is where do we get our information? And that's where perception comes into play, is because people assume they see reality, which they certainly do not. So the question is that you can say that you have choice, but you don't have choice because we make decisions based on the current surroundings. So you have to step out of what you believe to be possible and choose to look again. And that's where mindfulness comes in.
Very, very awesome. So, James, I'm curious, did you come to this realization with an epiphany, or did you study others, or was this a huge revelation just inside of your head?
So it's a huge revelation, 15 years in the making.
Right.
So,
no, it's very cool.
Right. So here's what you got to kind of understand. So when I got out of jail, right, I'd taken responsibility. I was going to figure out the creative mechanisms of my life. And I met my wife, and my wife was just as broken as I was. And we decided to go on this journey together. And so when we started this journey, we would literally sit on our bed every single night for hours talking about our issues and our feelings and our interpretations and why this made me mad and why that made me mad. And, because we didn't have any money, so we didn't have access to, any of the personal development people out there. So we just tried to figure it out.
Right.
The first thing we tried to do, one of the very first things we tried to do was change a belief. And, the first belief I started with was I knew that I hated myself. So I started telling myself I love myself. I'd be like, I love myself. And I'd hear this little voice and it would say, you're a liar, right? But I'd say it again, and I'd say it again, and I'd say it again. And over a long period of time, it seemed like less of a lie. And then eventually I started believing it, right? And so we adopted a lot of these types of beliefs, and we addressed a lot of these types of issues. But we're talking about 5 years worth of work. I mean, the type of work that we put in, most people just don't have they just don't, it's too much, right?
And
so
the motivation,
we put in this massive amount of work, right? And what we found is after several years of changing beliefs on the inside, things started to shift on the outside, and then they started to shift rapidly.
Wow.
From the time I left that cell, it took me 9 years to get to my first $1 million. And it was 9 years of shifting beliefs every day. And so, in our book and in our movie, which is called Perception, Seeing is Not Believing, what we do is we give you the benefit of not having to spend 9 years figuring out the principles behind what we discovered as we got there. The other interesting part about that story was when we got to the first $1 million, I looked at my wife and I said, are you happy? And she goes, nope. Are you? I'm like, nope. Because we had pinned our happiness on all the things that we wanted. And so it was on that day that we turned around and we decided that we were going to figure out now what it takes to create happiness. And so what I would tell your listeners, whatever you're trying to create in your life, whether that be happiness, well-being, money, finances, what it takes to create on happiness and well-being is different than what it takes to create money and wealth in the outside world, but they are two sides to the same coin that we call perception. Creating money is about changing your perception of the outside world. Creating happiness and well-being is about shifting your perception of the inside world.
Wow. And so you took time every night to sit down and talk about this with each other. But you were also having to make money. You were also having to survive with jobs and children and that kind of thing. But did you make this a priority, this study, this personal research? And did you know that the end result was going to be this program, or was that part of what happened as a consequence to all the work that you'd put in?
So great question, by the way. The answer is that I always knew that if I figured it out, that I would give that knowledge back, right? And, I always say that the world doesn't need any more parrots. So I thought your question was great because, it was like, oh, did you come by this or did you read it? We figured this out from our experience because I think that's the one true litmus test. And so what I would say to you is, I'd go to work and guys would talk about, oh, we watched this series on Netflix or we played video games all night. And I'm like, who's got time for that? Right? It's like, because no, we didn't, we gave up all of those things that other people would be doing, socializing, drinking, whatever it was, to really invest in ourselves because we knew that we couldn't sustain another fight with the darkness. And it was life or death for us.
Right.
Plus I had big goals, right? I wanted to do great things. And so I didn't give up. And so essentially what happened is just over time, we developed all of the principles in this philosophy, and then we went and checked them with science, and they happened to completely match up.
Wow.
Because they would have to, because they were proven through our experiences.
Right.
So we would come up with a concept, we'd apply it to our lives, and then we would see how it works. And if it doesn't work, we'd stop, right? If it worked, we would refine it until it worked better and better and better. And then we would continue that process until we got to an amazing place.
It might be important to note too, James, because I think during this 9-year process, you also created a software company that became quite successful. Maybe touch on that story a little bit, because ultimately, I don't assume you knew anything about software or computer programming or any of that.
Yeah, I didn't. As a matter of fact, it's funny because when my wife and Steph and I met, she taught me how to send my first email.
That's what I read. Yeah.
That was my resume, and I sent it and I became a salesperson in like a software company. And so eventually I got offered a job. So a big part of what we teach is understanding how to recognize opportunities. And what people need to really understand about perception is that what you feel on the inside is reflected on the outside. So you can imagine that life is like a movie theater, and what you're interacting with, or video game, what you're interacting with is your beliefs being displayed on the screen.
Right.
And so as we started shifting our beliefs, opportunities started popping up. And there was an opportunity to get involved with a really young construction software company, and I jumped in with both feet. Even though it was, I'd just gotten to the point where I was making decent money, took like half my pay, and then eventually became the president of that company, and then eventually owned the company, sold it twice, bought it back, and Steph and I sold it again. And, that we didn't stop at that first million for sure. The last time we sold it was about 1.5 years ago, and that's when we launched our company, Powerful You, and wrote the book and made the movie in order to give this knowledge back to people who are in need.
That's so cool.
And the book comes out today.
The book's
out. I got the book right here.
Yay!
So absolutely, it was a lot of work, but it's awesome.
How much is the movie like the book, or are there different stories in each?
So if you ask Steph, she would say the book's way better, right? And so, I've had a lot of people watch the movie and they kind of say it's like The Secret with substance, because everything in it's science-based, because it's based on the science of perception. And so the book or the movie is more like The Secret, where you have a lot of different teachers telling different aspects of perception. The book is just Steph and I's journey and all of the principles we learned as we associate it. So it's a much deeper dive. So I would say the book is better than the movie because you can really digest it, but I think the movie's really good as well.
Is it a documentary, the movie?
Yeah, it's kind of it's like a movie that's never really been made before, because it tells a couple of very compelling stories, and then it also laces a lot of principles into it. And so we talk about different techniques and processes. And so it's, what we wanted to give people when we made the movie was not only to open them up, but give them at least a little bit of knowledge to start on their path forward to changing their lives.
Right. And some people, pretty much have to do that, because some people are auditory and some people are visual and other people are thinkers. And in order to get a message out there, you need to appeal to everyone, really.
Absolutely, you need to appeal to everyone.
So speaking of that, though, who is this book for? Who is the movie for? What demographic were you targeting in order to get the message out there?
So this movie is for anybody who wants more, right? When they look at their lives and they want to know, how do I create the life that I desire? Whether that's on the outside through, connections and relationships and money and creativity, or how do I get in and really get into creating deep well-being? I told you this was a 9-year process. The interesting part about that was, and we write this in the book, is that process that we used initially, we could teach people, but nobody had, could sustain that long of a battle and change. And so all they saw was, after that point where things started growing, they're like, why is your life growing so much faster than ours? Because we did all this work. And so we tell them what to do and they couldn't do it. And so that's when we dug in and we really went into the principle, understanding the principles behind what we were changing. But I'll give you an example, because the book and the movie are all based on perception. And the book is called Perception, Seeing is Not Believing. Okay. And so we've been told our whole lives, I hear people say this all the time, I'll see it when I believe it, right? Or I'll believe it when I see it. Well, the opposite.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Right? What is true is that you'll believe it, you'll see it when you believe it
and believe it.
Right? And so, because based on the way perception works, is that you do not see reality, right? And, most people either know that or they don't know that. When people hear it and they don't know it, they're like, what do you mean I don't see reality, right? Well, the science says you don't see reality. What you see is your interpretation of what you think reality is based on your past. So you're never seeing the present, you're only ever seeing the past, right? So if your life has always been crappy in the past, it's going to continue to be crappy in the future. And that's what I was experiencing, because what I believed about myself. And so I said it earlier that the inside always reflects on the outside. But I got a question for you guys. Do you think that you can have the thing you want most in the world sitting right in front of your face and just not see it?
I've come to learn that in the last month or two. Yeah. I don't think I would have believed that before, but I do believe it now.
All right. So I'm going to tell you guys a little story to illustrate how this works. I want you to picture in your mind a man. This man wants more than anything to be loved, right? He just wants to be in a relationship, but he has abysmal self-esteem, terrible self-image of himself. One day, this man walks into a store, walks up to a counter, and the woman behind the counter starts flirting with him. My question for you is, does he recognize the woman is flirting with him?
Does he recognize her, or does he recognize she's flirting?
Flirting with him.
Flirting with him. Does she see it? Does she see that she's flirting?
Does he see it? Does he see that does he comprehend the fact that she is flirting? I would say no. But
I guess it would depend on his past, on what his experiences have been.
Well, I already said he had really low self-esteem.
Oh, okay. All right.
He would not have.
He probably would not then. Yeah.
So most often that's the answer I get. Probably not. Right. And so the question I have for everybody listening is, if this guy can have the thing that he wants most in the world sitting right in front of his face, at least the opportunity to get it, what if that's happening to you? And based on the principles of perception, if you don't have it already and you want it, it is happening to you, and it's happening to you every single day. Period. It can't not be happening to you, because if it wasn't, you'd already have the thing that you want. So the question is, why doesn't he see it? Well, it's because I said he had low self-esteem. So his low self-esteem is in his mind. It's his belief about himself, right? But why is that impacting what he's seeing on the outside? And that's the principle behind perception.
Right.
What you believe on the inside is being projected on the outside. And so the guy can't see it because he doesn't believe it's possible, right? Because of his low self-esteem. He's like, oh, well, a woman like, he might even look at the woman, recognize she's talking to him, and go, a woman like this wouldn't be interested in me.
Right.
Now, we've all been in this situation or a similar situation with a friend. I want you to imagine that you're a friend and you're standing off to the side and you're watching this interaction, and the guy turns around and starts walking towards you. What do you say to him?
That lady was flirting with you, dude.
I think she likes you.
I think she's interested in
and then
you.
What happens? We've all been in that situation. You're like, oh my God, you're right. Like, I didn't even see it. How did I miss it? Right?
I could have had a V8.
Right? Yeah. it's that moment. We've all been both those people. Well, what people don't understand, they think that's a cute story, but that's life. That's how it works.
Yeah.
All the things that you currently want in life, the opportunity to get those things are there. You just can't see them. So we talk a lot about the law of attraction, right? Mm-hmm. The law of attraction is vastly misunderstood, right? Because we live in a universe of infinite possibilities. Okay.
It's true.
And so infinite number of possibilities is swirling around us all the time. So once we set our intention, right, that what we want becomes possible. Those opportunities start showing up. The problem is we'll never see them until we believe they're possible.
Right.
And the reason we don't is very simple. It's just math, right? It's a matter of capacity. Your subconscious mind takes in millions of bits of information a second. And so its job is to take all that information based on what you currently believe and deliver to you what the most interesting pieces are. And that's what perception is, and it does it instantly. Well, your subconscious mind does not waste time looking for things that you don't believe is possible, just like you wouldn't go to the end of a rainbow and look for a pot of gold because you don't think it's there. Right. So the reason the man doesn't see it is because he doesn't believe it's possible. And so what the law of attraction really is the reason we get these vision boards and we stick stuff to it and we start focusing on that stuff is not to make the opportunity appear. It's so that we believe it, so that we see the opportunity that's already there that we're missing. And we hear stories about this all the time. How many people do we know who worked together for years, both had a crush on one another, and they didn't know, oh, I didn't even know, right? and they've been married. And we hear these stories all the time, but this is how your mind works. When you focus on something, things that you didn't see before appear. I'll give you guys an example. I want you to imagine the car that you're now driving. Whether you decided you wanted that car before you went to the lot or you just went to the lot and you bought it. As soon as you focused in on that car in either of those scenarios, all of a sudden that car is everywhere.
Right.
You're like, how come everybody in this town literally drives the same car as you? Right? But you didn't see it before.
Right.
Not until you made that decision or you bought the car, and then all of a sudden those cars are everywhere. They were always everywhere.
Right.
Your mind didn't see it. That's how our mind works. Is there's so much information that you have to be able to direct what you see. And so when we go to choice, you can't make a choice. You know, we talk about choice. You said, you know, if the guy doesn't see it, he doesn't actually have a choice in flirting back with the girl, right? Because he doesn't see it. And so therefore he can't engage in it. And so what you guys need to understand is that your perception works like your eyesight. It works in a limited field.
Right.
And we call this the field of perception. The more you believe it, the more likely you are to see it, right? The less you believe it, the less likely you are to see it.
It's not going to be part of your words. Yeah.
So going back to the guy at the counter then, what do you help him do differently to change his perception? What is the process that would help this man to gain greater self-esteem so that when someone flirts with him again, or maybe he wants to go back and meet this woman who was flirting with him then, what are the steps that you would help him work through to get to that point?
So that's a great question, and nobody's ever asked me that before, by the way.
That's why she's my co-host, James.
Right, yeah, you picked a good co-host.
Oh, thanks.
So I said he had low self-esteem, right? And so what is self-esteem? It's his opinion of himself.
Right.
Right? And so most experts agree, right, that self-esteem is established by like the age of 5 or 6, right? And so if it's just your opinion of yourself, why don't you go change your opinion of yourself?
It's that easy.
Yeah, it's that easy. Well, because we don't know where that opinion lies. But I often ask people, I'm like, would you like to have better self-esteem? Like both of you, would you like to have better self-esteem?
Sure.
Well, why? What would it do for you?
I think it would give me the confidence to be able to see more of those opportunities right in front of my face. And I think I would have more energy to keep going to accomplish everything I needed to.
How about you?
Yeah, confidence hit me at first, and then she started answering it, and I would just like, oh yeah, I totally agree with what she was saying. The confident, I know the opportunities are out there. I know they're everywhere, and yet, I guess fear
Yeah,
Fear of-
so I will go into that next. That's a great
guess-
segue. I'm gonna explain fear. You're gonna understand fear by the end of this.
Cool.
But let me answer her question first. The answer is, here's what's really interesting. If our self-esteem is established by the time we're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, that means our 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old self has a big role in how our lives are going to turn out. Doesn't that scare us? Like, I remember what I was doing at 6, and it wasn't good. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything. I mean, it's just, and that's who's deciding. So we have to go into our subconscious mind and change those beliefs. Well, there's 2 ways to address a belief in your subconscious mind. There's a way that the long way, which we did it, was to try to insert a new belief on top of the old belief. It doesn't get rid of the beliefs. So what we did in that long period of time was we shoved enough light in there to cover up the darkness until the light started reflecting in our lives. But unfortunately, we just put this lid off in the darkness and put it in the corner, and every once in a while the lid would fly off and something ugly would happen, right? So that's one way. You know, you start with affirmations, and you just tell yourself a different story, tell yourself a different narrative, which is a very powerful thing. Is, tell yourself a different story, rewrite your story. The second way is through a process we call the emotional integration technique, which is going into your past, using your emotions as your guide, because there's a reason that things upset you. You use your emotions as a guide to figure out what your false and limiting beliefs are. You go into those experiences, like me in that kindergarten, I went right back into that room, and I didn't change the experience, but essentially what I did was I imprinted a new emotion on that experience. And the emotion I imprinted was gratitude and love, because I gave myself that in that situation, the love that I needed not to have experienced everything else that came after. And so I literally rewound the whole thing. And so, because the way your mind works, and people will understand this, when you get angry and the level of anger that you have doesn't really fit the situation you're in, and your spouse is looking at you like, what's wrong with you right now?
Ants. Right? Oh man, I hate ants, and I will get so angry if I have to do
Right. And so where does that come from? That comes from perception. What happens is that the way perception works is when you're having an experience, your mind does something similar to a Google search. It says, give me an experience that was much like the experience I'm having now. So it goes into your past and finds an experience, and then it delivers that experience to dictate your current situation.
Like a computer, yeah.
Right. But that experience also has an emotion attached to it, and welcome anger. Kid spills your milk, you're standing at the table screaming at him, your spouse is looking like you're an idiot, and you're like, I don't even know where that came from, right? And that was the spilled, that was the situation where we're putting a lid on it. And so what we learned to do was, if you understand the 2 concepts you really need to understand are perception and emotions. Your emotions are your only guide into your subconscious mind, because there's a reason that things upset you. But what we do as a society is we have a tendency to project our emotions on other people or repress them and push them down in our body. Well, all of your unprocessed emotions are still stuck in your body, because emotions live in your body, not your mind. And so what you have to do is, those cause disruption in your system, is you have to go find the emotion, follow it back to where it's in your body, find the associated memory, and stand down the fear that's associated with that memory. And imprint gratitude and love in that place. So the next time, unbeknownst to you, that your perception goes into your past to pull that memory to predict your current situation, it comes with a different emotional response. And that's what it takes to create happiness. Is you go declutter your past, you declutter the emotional response that are stuck in your past experience to imprint new emotions, and you go in your past to impact your future. In the present, to create stuff in the outside world, you manage the interpretation post-assumption. You change what they believe. And so one of the things we discovered is, like, we adopted a belief that everything happens in our best interest. So here's another thing that's interesting about perception. It doesn't actually matter if it's true, because nothing's true. So you guys know a pessimist?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So what do pessimists say? I'm not a pessimist, I'm a realist, right? And I'm like, here's what the pessimist fails to understand. Their pessimistic view of the world is no more real or less real than my optimistic view of the world, right? But there is a cost to pessimism. And that's what they don't understand. There's a cost. When we talk about that field of perception, positivity opens up your field of possibilities, right? Pessimism and negativity closes down your field of perception. Yeah. And so it's like, I'm a realist. I'm trying to deal in facts. And they focus on the most negative aspect of a situation. And what they do is they actually create the environment for that situation to manifest in their life, right? Because they blocked out all of the other possibilities, right? And so what a pessimist fails to understand is that you can look at the world through a negative lens, but it's going to cost you dearly because it's closing down your field of perception. And now you've made the most negative circumstance the most likely circumstance.
Missing opportunities.
Yeah, because here's the thing. It's like, we had this belief, everything happens in our best interest. Does everything happen in our best interest? Probably not. But what did that belief do for us?
Opened up your field.
Right. So and we realized this much later, when something negative would happen, we go, well, everything happens in our best interest. Something good is coming. And we
Where's the pony?
Right. We wouldn't dive into the negative thoughts, feelings. We wouldn't close it down. And so we'd be like, and then something good would come along. We'd be like, see, everything happens in our best interest. Are those two things connected? Don't know, don't care, doesn't matter. Because had I gone into the negativity, I would have missed the next opportunity.
Right. There's a gift. I think
started the show by saying something like you chose differently, right? That's that choice.
Right. I know it as there's a gift in this somewhere. I may not know what it is right now, but I know that there's a gift in this somewhere.
And is that true? And the answer is it doesn't actually matter because believing it true makes it true. Because
makes it true. Totally. And then the gift pops up, right? You realize,
like, hey, here it is.
There's the gift.
Everybody looks at you like you're the luckiest person in the world. You're like, this has luck. Let me tell you, people that are listening something. Luck has nothing to do with it.
Right.
Right? Luck has nothing to do with it. And here's the other thing that's super interesting. I don't care what your current skill sets are. I don't care what education you do or don't have. You right now have the opportunity and the availability to change your interpretations of self and the world around you, shifting what you feel and believe on the inside, and to create a magical life for yourself. And people are like, oh, well, James, you're just smarter than I am. I'm like, really? Because when I got out of jail, I went to the community college and I took the entrance exam. And after I took the entrance exam, the lady sat me down, she really nicely and said, hey, so you can't come to school here? And I said, why not? And she said, because you only have a 3rd to 5th grade education. You won't pass any classes. And so people always focus on the wrong side of the story because they're like, oh, I can't believe they denied you, right? That's not the right part of the story to focus on. Because what in fact happened is I decided on that day, I didn't go to the library and start studying. I decided on that day to focus on my strengths. What are my strengths? You know, I'm good at solving problems. And when I'm passionate about something, I can be persuasive. And so I was like, I took those strengths and turned those 2 strengths into millions of dollars. I'm not a better speller today. I don't know any math. I can't run a spreadsheet, right? I don't have any of those traditional skills. But here's the thing about skills, and I want your listeners to understand this, is that you'll never have all the skills, so it doesn't matter if you have any of them.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to find people to fill in the gaps no matter what. You just have to find a few more of them. Right? And so as I started acquiring wealth, I didn't have to acquire skills or go back to school in order to do it. Right now, you have everything that it takes to create a magical life for yourself.
Right.
And what are some of your daily affirmations then? What is it that you tell yourself every day?
So I'm beyond the affirmation point. And I do the emotional integration technique every day. And so essentially what I do is every day I look for disturbances in the force, right? I know we're very, right? In my mental well-being. And anytime I'm dealing in a negative emotion, what I quickly do if I get angry, sad, frustrated is I get out my phone and I put the trigger down. Somebody said this or did this and it made me mad. And then I go about my day. And the next morning I wake up, or that night before I go to bed, I sit down and I bring that anger up again. And I go into finding the belief that caused that disruption and cleaning that emotion out so that I won't have to deal with that again. Because here's what people don't know. There is no mystery to people's lives. It always amazes me when people, they spend 30 years smoking or eating terribly and they get heart disease or lung cancer. And they're like, why me, God? What do you think was going to happen? Right? I'm here to tell you guys, there is no mystery to life.
Right.
What do you believe? The evidence is everywhere. I could have a conversation with you and tell you what you believe about money. I could have a conversation with you about your relationships, tell you what you believe about relationships, health, and fitness, because what's on the inside only ever reflects on the outside. And so your life is the sum total of your beliefs, your current sets of beliefs. So as you start to shift your beliefs about who you are and what you are, and how you relate to the world, the outside starts changing rapidly. And that's the process. But here's where people get stuck, is they never calculate the cost of not moving, right? And so they get in the comfort zone because like, oh, that's scary to go change. Well, it's more scary not to change. How many people do we know that's had a heart attack, right? And refused and, went on a diet for a very short period of time and then gained all their weight back and more.
Right. Or quit smoking, right? Or quit smoking, and then 3 months later, they're smoking again.
Yeah.
There is no mystery to your life. You can map it out yourself. Look at your current weight. Where were you at this time last year? Were you heavier or skinnier? If this trend continues, where will you be this time next year? 5 years, 10 years. Money, the same thing. You more debt, less debt. Relationships, same thing. Less relationships. So we fail to have that self-awareness and calculate the cost of doing nothing, because it's not actually possible to do nothing, because you're already hurling on a path towards an ending. And if you can learn to be honest with yourself about, if I continue this current path, and you will, because I think people like to think about change in that act of God type of change. That doesn't happen.
Right.
Nothing or nobody will divert you off your path except for you. You are the one that you're waiting for. You have to wake up and go, how do I choose, and this is where choice comes in, to choose a different path and to create a different path? Well, I have to go inside and start shifting and changing on the inside in order to change on the outside. So you have to change the story narrative. I mean, people are terrible to themselves. Nobody, you wouldn't let anybody talk to you the way you talk to yourself.
I was just going to say that.
Right? Stop. Yourself. Be loving yourself.
It's totally true.
You are literally stuffing all that negativity into your subconscious mind, and then it's delivering it as perception, and that's your reality.
Yeah. I want to remind people that we are talking to James Purpura. Am I saying that right, James Purpura?
Yeah, you did really good, and you didn't even ask. Yeah.
And he wrote the book called Perception. You could hold the book up for us. Perception, Seeing is Not Believing. It's a really cool book, and it just got released today. How cool is that?
And you guys get the first ones.
Yeah,
Yay!
You know,
Nice.
James, we just have about 5 minutes left. Would you be open to coming back? Because I think there's a lot more to talk about. Jackie, did you have fun? Isn't this cool stuff?
Oh yeah, this is really great. And James, you guys are on, you and your wife are on the, maybe you call it the cutting edge of this personal development industry. How do you see that changing everywhere in the future, or do you? Or is this going to be sort of this secret that continues to just be hidden by, because you said science is on board.
Well, I think the
Where are
personal
we going with
development,
this?
I think the personal development thing is very broken because it's all guru based. Here's what I'm gonna tell your listeners. Anybody somebody says, I'm the answer, follow me,
Right.
run in the other direction.
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
our company is called Powerful You because it's about you. I didn't call it James and Steph International because it's not about us. Anytime I walk somebody through a process, they're like, oh, thank you, James. You did so. I'm like, I didn't do anything. This was you. This information in this book is about giving you your power back. And so I do have a message for your listeners.
Cool.
I want you to know, if you're sitting there, that there's somebody that's listening to the sound of my voice, maybe several people that are considering suicide. There are several people who are depressed. I want you to know that I see you. I know what you're feeling. I've been to that dark place. I've been to a place where I felt like I was all alone, even if I was in a room full of people, that nobody understood me, and that I felt like I was crazy. And I want you to know that you're not crazy, to feel the way that you are. Your feelings are completely justified based on what you've been through, but you can change that. And I would say that we need you. I want you to know that we need you. Nobody else. You, only you has lived the life that you have. And there's something so unique and real about that the world needs your story. It needs your voice. And we need you to stand up and recognize your strength. And I promise you, that we will give you the information you need to change and transform your life in any way, shape, or form that you want or can, so that your message can help transform somebody else's life, because the world's in trouble. And we need every seeker and every person that's willing to stand up and raise their hand and say, I want to change so I can help the world change.
Nice. I want to remind the listeners that James and we're going to have Steph on too. I think you guys are doing such
way
great
cooler
work.
than me, guys.
Yeah. No, you are doing. Their website is www.powerful-u.com. You can go and check them out. And if you go to www.lifemasteryradio.net, we do have a link to their website.
So you can buy the book on our website starting soon, but you can buy it on Barnes & Noble, and you can buy it on Amazon, and you can buy the movie and stream it on our website. We also have a content platform like the Netflix for personal development we're just releasing, where you can get all of the great content for a few bucks a month. So please come visit us.
Yeah.
Oh, one more is an assessment.
Yeah, the assessment.
Assessment that will literally tell you what's in your subconscious mind. Sometimes it's hard to hear. We've had to rewrite the results 3 times to make them a little softer, because people are like, what? That's not me. And we're like, after we explain it to me, like, that's exactly me. You don't have to guess. We will tell you the ideas that are caught in your subconscious mind that are making you weak, and how to shift and change those ideas, and what ideas are the most empowering ones to change. Out of all the ideas we change, there's 3 that are the most empowering, and the assessment will walk you through those. They're also in the book and the movie. Actually, they're in the book. They're not in the movie.
Very, very, very cool. James, did you have a blast today?
I did, of course. You guys are great. Love hanging out with you guys.
Hey, you're welcome to come back, because you know why?
Why?
We didn't get to talk about fear.
Oh, dude, I will blow your mind about fear. I'll tell you your core fear, but it's also in the book.
Okay. I like it. I like it from the horse's. I like it from James's mouth.
Saying I look like a horse?
No.
Okay. Well,
I did not say that at all.
All right.
Thanks so much, James, for being on the show today. I want to thank all of our listeners, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Please tell a friend and sign up for our newsletter. Check out James's site. Check out Jackie's site. We spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to bring you great content every week. Some great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. Lastly, I would really like it if you made it a great day, because as we talked about today, it's all about choice. Bye-bye for now. Check us out. Check James out. We'll talk again next week. Bye-bye.